So, in the world of MMA, there's a lot of recent announcements, a lot of news that's been breaking out, and it's mainly been posted on the Full Violence MMA Instagram page. You can go follow that if you don't already. Full Violence is a pretty credible source. I mean, he's not the source, he gets it from another source and then, posts all the news and stuff like that. But he's usually where people find out a lot of this information. And one of the main things I obviously want to discuss is that Alex Pereira, his next opponent, will be Magomed Ankalaev. It's not going to be Alexander Volkov like it was originally rumored. Thank God, because I've thought that was just stupid matchmaking for him to be so desperate to fight in March during Ramadan to where he just ends up going to heavyweight and doesn't even fight for the heavyweight title or like the interim title against Tom Aspinall. I think that would have been stupid. I mean, I know Anderson Silva in his prime, when he would move up, when he was middleweight champion, he wouldn't fight whoever was the champion, whether it was like Rashad Evans or, Machida, but they're friends, or Shogun. He'd just fight some contender like Forrest Griffin or James Irvin, Stephen Bonner. He'd make side missions up different divisions if he got bored at middleweight. And it looked like Alex was going to do the same thing, but I'm glad that's not true, but I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But also, we got more news that Ilia Topuria is most likely going to stay at featherweight, which I did predict. That was one of my 2025 predictions, that he will stay at featherweight for at least one more defense before moving up. And his next opponent is going to be Alexander Volkanovski. And that leads to the next announcement, because there's another contender in the featherweight division, but this other contender is partaking in a stupid matchup that makes literally no sense. Why is Diego Lopes fighting Yair Rodriguez? Why is he not rematching Diego Lopes at UFC Mexico? Why can't Yair fight another contender? It doesn't make any sense. That screwed up one of my many 2025 predictions when I said we would see Lopes versus Evloev, but I guess not, because the UFC, they're dumb when it comes to matchmaking, and they like to fumble the most logical opportunities that make the most sense. And then Gilbert Burns versus Michael Morales. So I guess I'll talk about that first. So hypothetically right now, it looks like UFC 314 will have Volkanovski versus Topuria 2. And I guess since Pereira will fight after Ramadan, meaning he is going to have to fight Ankh, maybe Alex Pereira might headline this card. The main event might be Pereira Ankalaev, co-main, El Matador versus Volkanovski, and then maybe, I don't want to be too quick to say that Burns versus Morales would be a feature fight, because it probably wouldn't be, because they might stack this card. They usually stack these Florida cards. I mean, look at UFC 299. UFC 287 actually wasn't overly stacked, but usually Florida has a good history with good cards. I mean, UFC 273 was pretty solid, and so is UFC 261, although that wasn't in Miami. It was in a different part of Florida, but you get the point, right? But Gilbert Burns, Michael Morales, I mean, props to Gilbert Burns for taking this fight. But I mean, we all know that this is just going to be another loss, for Gilbert Durinho Burns, a fourth straight loss, in fact, because in 2023, he did lose to to Bilal, and then he didn't really have a fight in between then and the JDM fight because he was recovering from an injury. Did pretty well against Jack Della Maddalena. I had him up on the cards, but then, he folded, got finished at the end, got destroyed by brutal ground and pound, then lost to Sean Brady. So it's like the UFC, they just keep feeding Burns to the wolves. They keep feeding him to these, up-and-coming killers. Although I wouldn't say Bilal was an up-and-comer. Bilal's a vet who's been around for a while, who is just now finding his footing as the champion. But you get the point. There's, no easy fights for Gilbert Burns, and it's kind of sad where Burns is now compared to early 2023, because I remember after the Khamzat loss, which he did very well in, This guy was stringing together 2 wins to start off 2023, and he was on an active schedule, fighting in January, April, and May. And had he beat Bilal, he could have been looking at the next potential title shot. But he loses to Bilal, and then he loses again to Jack, and then he loses again to Brady, and he's probably losing again to Michael Morales. And even if he doesn't lose, he's so far off from a title shot being ranked number 8. And unfortunately, I do not see Gilbert Burns winning. I know Burns has the experience. He's well-rounded. He's tough. I mean, the guy is a brawler with power, and wrestling and jiu-jitsu and speed, very explosive, but overall, he's not the most technical striker. I think Michael Morales has better striking acumen than him. I think this fight's ultimately going to come down to if Burns can, impose his grappling in this fight to control Morales. But even then, I don't think he's going to be able to do that. I think this fight's primarily going to be on the feet, and I just don't see Burns winning. I think Michael Morales is going to make a name off Gilbert Durinho Burns, crack the top 8, top 7 of the division. They might even boost him to top 5 for all we know. And I think Michael's going to be the new star moving forward in the welterweight division. And Burns is going to, further slip into that has-been status. And he might just retire, which is very unfortunate. But, I mean, again, props to Burns for having enough balls to take this fight. And then, okay, on this card, we might be seeing Volkanovski versus Topuria too. And apparently, it's like more than evident for Miami. And you know what? I like this matchmaking. I know a lot of people don't. A lot of people are saying that it should have been Lopes versus Topuria. But in my opinion, I mean, it could have been. But the problem is, Alexander Volkanovski is a legend. He's defended his belt so many times. He's been champion for 5 years. How could you not give him an immediate rematch, The only reason why he wasn't Ilya's next fight after UFC 298 is because Topuria, or because Max Holloway was making waves with that viral knockout and viral moment against Gaethje where he pointed to the center and then KO'd him at the buzzer in the 5th round, and everyone wanted to see Topuria, or Max, the BMF, go up against the undefeated Ilya. So that was clearly the fight to make. They were both talking crap about each other, calling each other out. So I feel like for Ilya's legacy, he needed to fight Max Holloway. But now that he's gotten that over with, how can you not give Volkanovski a title shot? He's been waiting in the wings so patiently. And with his status and accolades and everything this man has accomplished, you have to give this guy a shot at the title. It would just be criminal if he didn't get the next title shot. So I know it's unfortunate. Volkanovski I think he's like, 36, 37. He's not getting any younger. He's not getting any better. Topuria's improving. He's getting more dangerous every fight. Ilya's a terrible matchup at this point because he matches Volkanovski's stature, being short, stocky, but has a power advantage, boxing advantage, equally as well-rounded. And Volk's chin has just further gotten worse. I get it. I know people don't want to see Volk get knocked out again. I don't want to see him get knocked out again, but this fight has to happen. It's the fight to make, and who knows? There's a chance for Volkanovski to do the impossible, to do the unthinkable. What if Volk comes back refreshed and proves us all wrong and beats Ilya and becomes a 2-time champion? That would make for a beautiful comeback underdog story for Volk. And if it doesn't happen, then whatever, it's the end of an era. But like I said, this fight has to happen. It must be done. Volk deserves his rematch. It would be criminal if he didn't get a rematch, okay? Jose Aldo, as a former dominant featherweight champion, he didn't get his rematch with Conor. Now, to make up, he did get his rematch with, he did get his second shot at Holloway. And Holloway got his rematch with Volk when he lost, but with all this happening, we see so many dominant champs lose and get immediate rematches. it would just not make any sense for Volk to not get the next crack. Plus, Volk went in the octagon after Ilya knocked out Max. So how can you not give this fight to Volk? So I can't complain. I hope this fight happens, and I hope this fight headlines UFC 314 or is a part of let me rephrase that, or maybe serves as a co-main to a bigger title fight, like an Alex Poatan Pereira. And then speaking of Alex Poatan Pereira, um, actually, no, I'm going to get into Lopes Rodriguez. Sorry about that, because I said I was going to save the best for last. But it looks like, it doesn't look like it's happening. Lopes versus Rodriguez, for whatever reason, is headlining UFC Mexico. I don't understand why. Diego Lopes has nothing to gain from beating Yair, who's on a 2-fight losing streak, one TKO to the champ Volk, and another loss by submission to Ortega. And Lopes just beat Ortega. Why would he fight Yair? This is a waste of time. And then what if Diego ends up losing? That would be a good comeback story for Yair. But it's like, do we really want to see Yair fight for a title again? I know Volk's not the champion, but it's pretty evident that he would not beat someone like Ilya Topuria. And he's already lost to 2 other former champs like Volk and Max Holloway, even though Max is permanently done at featherweight. I just feel like there's no appeal with this matchup. I think Diego Lopes is going to destroy Yair Rodriguez. I see some people saying that, oh, Diego's overrated. He's going to get exposed by Yair, but I beg to differ. Diego might be a little overrated, but if anyone is going to expose him for being fraudulent, it's not going to be one-dimensional Karate Kid Yair Rodriguez, okay? Diego Lopes is going to go out there. He's going to mix up the martial arts. Diego can literally get in boxing range, tag up Yair, probably chin him, but even if he doesn't, let's say he doesn't hurt him, he has the option of being able to take this fight to the ground and dominate with his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and win by submission. And I'm going to predict that is how he's going to win. He's going to take the path of least resistance like Volk did, like Max did in moments, like Frankie did back in the day. And Ortega, and win by sub. And then what are you going to do from there, though, if he wins? Like, does Lopes get the next title shot, or are they just going to give it to Mosvar? I just feel like if they would have made Mosvar versus Lopes 2, that fight would have given a better sense of direction as far as what's next in the featherweight title picture after Volkanovski versus Topuria. But whatever. Now, Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev is the next fight in the light heavyweight division. It is confirmed via Ariel Helwani. Thank goodness. But the date is yet to be confirmed. So I guess it's not going to be March 8th at UFC 313 in Miami, or not Miami. 313 is not in Miami. That's 314. But wherever 313 is, it's probably going to be like in Las Vegas and T-Mobile. Yeah. Alex Pereira will fight Ankalaev. We just don't know when. But I'm glad he's fighting Ank, man. I was just so annoyed when it was rumored he'd fight Volkov, because it's like, what's the point of that matchup? What's the point of fighting Volkov? You're not fighting for a title. Yeah, you could beat Volkov and then that could earn you a heavyweight title shot, but there's still no clear picture as to what's happening with the heavyweight championship as far as John Jones. Is he going to retire? Is he going to fight Tom? Will he vacate and will Tom be undisputed? And then if he beats Volkov and then fights for the heavyweight championship after, it's just further going to create a logjam at 205. And then Ank's going to have to once again fight another contender or at least fight for an interim title. So you just might as well wait a couple months or wait a month. Wait till Ramadan's done. You've already been so active, Alex. You don't need to fight in March. You could literally fight in April, May. They usually go to Brazil in May. They could do a Brazil pay-per-view in Rio de Janeiro in May, and that could be headlined by Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev. But I'm glad to see the UFC is doing the right thing. We're finally going to get Magomed Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira. No more running, no more games. And we're going to find out who is the best light heavyweight in the world. Magomed Ankalaev is on a 13-fight win streak at light heavyweight. I believe Pereira has won 5 fights since losing to Israel Adesanya, and I believe he is 5-0 at 205. He beat Jan, Yair, Hill, Yair. Okay, yeah, he's 5-0 at light heavyweight right now. So 5-fight win streak at light heavyweight, and I believe he's like in the UFC. What's his overall record? Because he had the rise where he beat Michailidis, um, Bruno, Strickland, Izzy. Wow, so he's 9-1 in the UFC overall. That's pretty impressive. And Ank has one loss in the UFC too. So, yeah, I mean, this fight has all the rage, all the anticipation behind it. As far as who will win this matchup, it's tough to say because I feel like Ank should win because he has the wrestling, but he doesn't always depend on it in his fights. He strikes more than he wrestles, and he is talking about striking with Alex, and I mean, that could be a bluff. Maybe maybe that's all talk, because Jan said he'd strike with Alex, and then he shot for a takedown the moment the fight started and grappled throughout the whole fight. So maybe Ank is bluffing, but we don't know if he's bluffing, and that's what makes it tough to predict, because what if he isn't bluffing, he strikes with Alex, he might get himself knocked out. Or what if he does wrestle, but then Alex gets up, because every round starts on the feet. What if in between rounds, the next fight starts on the feet, and then Alex catches him before Ank can get another takedown? Like, there's so many different ways this fight could go. Maybe Ank could grind him out to a decision through the wrestling. It's unlikely he gets a finish. And we know Alex Pereira is dangerous every single round. He's shown this in fights where he's been down on the cards and came back, like against Izzy and Khalil. So we're going to find out. It's going to be a great fight. And this is going to be one of Alex Pereira's biggest tests. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below of all these matchups. And like and subscribe, and peace out.